Belinda the Beetle. Chapter 6. On the Trail. But meanwhile, what had been happening on the beach? Daddy and Mummy were fast asleep till a bus came droning up the road. Daddy opened his eyes and reached for his book. He lay reading comfortably. From time to time, he heard a scuffling noise, but took no notice. He thought the children were playing close by. The noise went on, and he glanced down towards the sea. The children were there, so they couldn't be behind him. He looked round. To his horror, he saw a man pushing Belinda up the hill. Belinda was stuck, and he was trying frantically to make her move. "Hi, stop!" Daddy shouted. He jumped up and ran along the track. The man saw him coming, leapt into Belinda and drove her off. "Stop! Stop!" yelled Daddy, and ran. But you can't run fast with bare feet on the stony path, and by the time he reached the road, Belinda was out of sight. Mummy arrived a few minutes later, followed by Susan and John. "Poor Belinda's stolen," wailed the children. "We did love her so." And they began to cry. "Never mind, my dears," panted Daddy, out of breath. "Just let me get my shoes on, and I'll go to the police. They'll bring her back." "Police?" said a voice behind them. "What's the trouble?" They turned and saw a respectable-looking man in a brown suit. "Somebody's stolen Belinda," sobbed the children. "Belinda?" asked the man. He was puzzled. "Someone kidnapped your sister?" "No," said Daddy. "We have a little car which we call Belinda, and someone has stolen it. I saw him driving away." "Did you see what he looked like?" asked the man in a brown suit. "Yes, he was tall and thin, and with a hat and dark-side whiskers." Brown's face was grim. "Did you guess the stranger was brown?" "So that's who it was," he growled. "I might have guessed that Snoop would have something to do with it." "Why?" said Daddy in surprise. "Do you know him?" "To my sorrow," answered Brown. "His mother's a respectable, hard-working woman, and my wife thinks a lot of her. To please her, I've employed Snoop myself, and given him every chance, but he's let me down time after time. I've spoken to him, his poor old mother has spoken to him, my wife has spoken to him. Each time he said to me, 'Mr. Brown, I promise I'll go straight.' But he's weak, and there are those who lead him astray. But now," said Brown fiercely, "he's gone too far. I'll get my car and we'll go after him and catch him." "But," said Daddy, "oughtn't we to tell the police?" "No," said Brown firmly. "By the time we've finished answering all their questions, Snoop will have got clear away. Besides, if Snoop ever got into the hands of the police, the disgrace of it would kill his poor old mother, and my wife, and I would hate for that to happen." "Perhaps you're right," said Daddy doubtfully. "I'm much obliged for your help," and he hobbled down to the beach to find his shoes. When Brown came back with the car, the same big Bentley, Daddy was waiting anxiously by the roadside. The family were there to see him off. "I wish I could come detecting with you, Daddy," said Susan. "Can't I come, Daddy, please?" "No, pet. You and John stay with Mummy, and go back home by bus." "Goodbye, Mummy dear. Don't worry, we'll find Belinda." "Goodbye, goodbye. Bring her back safe, Daddy dear." It wasn't difficult to discover which way Belinda had gone. Everyone remembered the sound of her horn at the first village. "She went along the road to Castle Dreadcar, over the moors," they said. So they fought to right at the crossroads, and soon began to climb. Brown drove hard, and the powerful car sailed up the hills like a bird. Round a bend to the right, they swept into a little moorland village. Here they were halted while cattle crossed the road. A policeman with his bicycle stood nearby. On an impulse, the vicar lowered the window and spoke to him. "No, sir, I haven't seen the little red car, BLN111. Stolen, is it? You and your friend are trying to catch up with the thief, ain't you? Which way did he go? Along this road to Castle Dreadcar? I see. Right you are, sir." Brown fumed with impatience while the constable wrote the particulars in his notebook. "By rights," said the constable, "I ought to ask you to come along to the station with me and make a proper statement. But seeing as you're in a hurry, sir, I'll just trouble you to sign these notes and then I'll telephone the stations along the road so you could get help." "Thank you, officer. I'm most grateful." The last cow passed, and they drove on. Brown was silent for a while. Then he burst out furiously. "What do you want to bring in the police for?" "Look here, Brown," said the vicar. "Whose car has been stolen, yours or mine?" "Yours, of course." "Very well. I'm most grateful for your help you're giving me, but all I want to do is get it back. If a theft isn't reported to the police, how can it be expected to help? Now don't bring up Snoop's old mother. You can't go on letting him get away with it, as you say he has done in the past. It would be better for him, and for her too, if he was stopped." Brown drove on faster than ever. Tyres screamed as they shot round a bend at 60 miles an hour. The vicar shuddered, for there was a sheer drop on his side of the road. "Steady on, Brown," he protested. "We can't afford to go steady," Brown snapped. "You and your police. You must get there before they do, that's all." The vicar was puzzled. There's something strange going on, he thought. At last, a straggling village came in sight. The vicar looked at the map. "Crossroads here," he said. "We'll have to inquire." Brown checked the car and they were waved to a halt. "Another dratted policeman," he muttered. "Are you the gentleman looking for a car BLN111, painted red?" "Yes," said the vicar. "Have you seen her?" "No, sir, but Jim Tabbs here was coming home from Ellsbridge and passed her on the road. She was stopped, he says, and the driver was changing the wheel." "That right, Jim?" "What was the driver like?" "He was tall and thin, sir. There was a soft felt hat on the road beside him, and he had a bristly growth of whiskers coming down to his chin, as if he hadn't shaved properly. He'd hurt 3 fingers on one hand and couldn't use his tools. I got off my old bike and offered to help him friendly-like, but he swore at me, so I left him and came away." "Thank you, Mr. Tabbs. He's the man we're after." The vicar looked at the map again. "He's on the road to Ellsbridge. There's no side turnings for 7 miles, so if he's been held up by a puncture, we should catch him." "Come on then." Brown drove like a demon for the next few miles, till in the distance they saw Belinda standing with someone working furiously at her. "What the dickens is he doing?" exclaimed the vicar. "Is he looking for something?" "Looks like it to me," said Brown grimly. "And he's found it too. For Snoop saw them coming, put something in his pocket, and ran." Snoop had really only picked up his knife, but Brown thought he had got the jewels.